Now for the Honorable Minister of Human Services and Social Security, the Honorable Dr. Vindhya Persaud.
Mr. Speaker, I stand here to thank my colleague, Minister Dr. 𝐁𝐔𝐃𝐆𝐄, for his astute leadership, and also to thank his diligent members of staff for presenting to us successive budgets that speak to the needs of the Guyanese people, navigating in a climate where we have seen global crises, we have seen geopolitical tension, and like those budgets, this budget helps us as a country to navigate that, cushioning the impact of the global crises that exist in the world around us. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank all the staff members of the Ministry of Finance and also the members of the Ministry of Human Services for the work that they have done towards Budget 2025. Mr. Speaker, to embrace one's legacy requires a level of maturity. And as I sat and I listened to the debates, I realized the opposition shied away from embracing their own legacy. Mr. Speaker, I will wholeheartedly embrace the legacy of the PPP Civic. But, Mr. Speaker, every time there was mention of 28 years, we heard that we should not go back to the past. But I have decided today, Mr. Speaker, to indulge them and to just deal with their 5 years. That's enough for me to tell you many things. Mr. Speaker, in 1992, it was an indisputable fact that we had a debt of $2 billion. It simply meant, unlike now in 2025, when a baby is born with $100,000 on his head, back then you were born with a debt of $3,000 US. Mr. Speaker, you are well aware of that. That is your legacy. Mr. Speaker, I just need to compare 5 with just about 4. And I say just about 4 because the biggest heist when it came to democracy, the epic heist that was done in full view of the country and the world was when an elections was... The elections, we all know. I was standing there in the Ashman's building when the whole world saw what you did. Mr. Speaker, in any country, people will judge a government, as is their right, by the budget. It's a barometer of how they intend to deliver their manifesto promises. And that is exactly the people's right, because it speaks to a government's vision, competence, capacity, and capability. And I can easily say, and my colleagues have said it ad nauseum, that the manifesto of the last government was not delivered whatsoever. You want to talk about an F grade? That's a big fat F grade. Mr. Speaker, I have become inured to the vitriol, the annual vitriol spewed against me every year by the honorable member who spoke before me. And maybe that is why that day I said, I hope you're proud of the way you delivered your statement. And so, Mr. Speaker, I can say that because when one spews vitriol, it also seeks to deflect intellectual bankruptcy, which has been so evident from that side of the House. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, we have a budget that speaks to development of a country while at the same time focusing on all the people in all the regions of this country. Mr. Speaker, we have really in this budget incentivized hard work. In this budget, we have given the majority of the budget to the social services, notably health and education. Mr. Speaker, we're not in the habit of coming like a magician with a hat and pulling out outlandish promises. They got more bizarre as I listened to them today, as you promise what you will do when you come again, I don't know where, and going where. Actually, I do, right over there. But when it gets outlandish and bizarre, look back at what you didn't do in your 5 years in office. And I'll tell you what you didn't do. Because the 100 days that you speak of, the 100 days that you promised the people, there are many promises, and every one of them broken. Could the people of this country trust you? No. Should they trust you? No. Will they ever trust you? No. Because when you want to have a heist of a whole country, what would you not do? Mr. Speaker, if we look at when the APNU government was in office, Mr. Speaker, it was a dismal record of broken promises. And let me start with the senior citizens. I sat here and listened to the fact that this budget does not have anything for our senior citizens. We do not care about our senior citizens. Let me tell you, the budget is $58.5 billion. Mr. Speaker, $37 billion directly go to our old age pensioners. Now, Mr. Speaker, in addition to the $37 billion, all the other forms of assistance to senior citizens amount to $42 billion, which, if you add the public assistance benefits, over 80% of this $58.5 billion will be going directly to the most vulnerable populations in our country. That means that we care. I am not going to stand here with the temerity to tell any senior citizen that this is all that we will ever do, and this is the be-all and end-all. This government has consistently been escalating the pension, but not only that, looking at how our pensioners access their service. Mr. Speaker, it's an indisputable fact. In 100 days, the APNU government promised to double the budget. At that time, the total would be $26,000 if they did when they came into office. When they left office, it was $20,500. Compare that with the PPP Civic, who promised to double the pension, and in 2025, pensioners will get $41,000. Promise delivered. Mr. Speaker, the usual tendency is to beat out of the chamber after you would spew venom and vitriol. But I'm accustomed to that too. But, Mr. Speaker, that will never let me lose my voice, because I've always, before becoming a minister, stood up for the people of this country. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak of access. When I came into this ministry, it was confusion and chaos. Let me tell you, all this love for people who are vulnerable, you know how much they increased the public assistance by? $600 in 2017. $800 in 2018. That's your legacy. That's your record. Embrace it. Mr. Speaker, I want to say to you very clearly, as I stand here, when you come here and you peddle misinformation and you want to be very much a stranger to the truth must be told. Mr. Speaker, I have no apology to anyone. Whenever there is fraud, there is dishonesty, I call it out. I call the police in. So anything you know, it's probably me that made that report. And so when the books were found to be fraudulent, I called the police. Mr. Speaker, I have never shied away from improving and fixing issues, and that is what I did, starting from top to bottom of the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security. Today, pensioners have the opportunity to have their pension deposited directly to their bank. That is significant. Pensioners can access their pension through MMG. That is significant. Over 4,000 pensioners are making use of this. Pensioners can also now cash their vouchers every day of the month, because we have introduced alternate venues. Mr. Speaker, there are over 1,500 of those alternate venues across this country, and that is what you call care, because no longer do you see those pensioners lining up to encash their old age pension as they used to. Mr. Speaker, I also want to say to you, pensioners are also receiving their pension via a very caring system started at this ministry called the shut-in delivery system, and over 3,500 old age pensioners receive their pension and any cash grant in their homes. And I want to say this, Mr. Speaker, because our officers go out into all of these areas and deliver that service, and I want to thank them very much. Mr. Speaker, I also want to speak of direct delivery. And our direct delivery system in this country would have included 148 communities, to which we have added 76 more communities in remote, rural, and hinterland areas. What have you done? Nothing. Mr. Speaker, when I think of what you have done, actually you've done something. Your tenure was considered the taxing reign of this country. Taxing reign. You tax man, beast, wheelchair, you tax pensioner, you tax... No, and then, you know, I was having a conversation not so long ago, you tax plants too. If you planted more than 3 or 4 plants, you had to pay tax. You remember that story of the Region 5 farmer? Look, when you come here and you speak in this house, don't erase what you think we have forgotten, because we haven't. And no one out there has not forgotten the taxation that you levied on them to such an extent they could not. And you know what? I'm not going to tell you what they think. This was in 2016. And this is what people said, and I am quoting from news outlets. Mr. Speaker, I can share this with you. This is what they said. You had just gone into office. I think the budget is ridiculous, and Mr. Jordan needs to leave, and all the rest of them who can't do something for the country and the people of this country. 2016. Get out of office and give somebody else a chance. Time up. Mr. Speaker, further, in the 2016, so soon, yes, in the 2016 budget, the person further went on to say, another person, I think it's a rich people budget, because the poorer class of people cannot afford it. When you have to pay water bill and light bill and for food and school things for your children, everything is vatted. They mean taxed. And Mr. Speaker, one of the first things this government did was to remove all the taxes that you put on people, and also to remove the new taxes that you put on people. You didn't spare pensioners from that. Mr. Speaker, pensioners were not spared. You love the senior citizens. Did you spare them? Oh, but you know what else you do? You did? You removed the subsidies on electricity and water. In the 2025 budget, we have $882 million directed to the electricity subsidy. We have $298 million directed to the water subsidy. For electricity, it's $30,000 per annum, and let me tell you, it's a vast difference from what you did. Oh, let me deal with that. Thank you, Honorable Member. Let me make a point on that, Honorable Member. Mr. Speaker, this was exactly the argument that they used. All the people are not benefiting. So you know what was the measure they introduced? Let me tell you, free driver's license renewal. How many pensioners are driving so that it benefits? That's what I'm telling you, intellectual bankruptcy. So you are saying 40,000 people benefiting. That's not enough. That's not good. But you are renewing driver's license for free with the what? With the thinking that every pensioner out there is driving. Mr. Speaker, you know what the people said in 2016? I am not too happy about the budget, especially the tax on water and electricity. Those are two main commodities that are used by the poor and every person. I would have liked to see the government a little bit cleaner and more like live up to their word of being accountable and transparent. I like to see the pay of policemen, teachers, and nurses. How can people subsist on that? Mr. Speaker, and I told you I was comparing 5 years plus the months that they held out as an illegitimate. Can I say that? Okay. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. 5 plus, 5 plus. And we have not even started our 5th year properly. And we have done much more than you have over this time. Mr. Speaker, when in 2018 they neglected the inflation that soared to 5.4% that year, and you know how much money the pensioners got? $1,000. $1,000. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I have told you quite clearly that this budget is continuing to give and to give. Mr. Speaker, we have also noticed that the numbers in the vulnerable population would have increased, which means more and more vulnerable persons are benefiting. What started as over 50,000 pensioners would have evolved to over 76,000 pensioners that we speak of right now. And it's not only the pension. All of the benefits accrue because under this government, pensioners would have received free testing and also subsidies towards their spectacles, tested spectacles, and over 70,000 pensioners would have benefited alone last year. This year, the government's introduction of the voucher for a health checkup speaks to our government's concern about the welfare, well-being, and health of pensioners. Mr. Speaker, in addition to all of this, $5 billion would have been spent on cash grants to our pensioners directly. Mr. Speaker, when people come here and they want to misrepresent and they want to distort and thwart and just fill a presentation that is filled with nothing of substance, with all of these other things, it speaks volumes about them. Is it really care for the people of this country? Mr. Speaker, I want to further say, recorded legacy is a powerful thing. And your legacy, the members on that side of the House, APNU, PNC, AFC, yes, all of the above, all of them. And you see, when you can change, what they say, you can change and change, but you can't change your spots and stripes. Well, we saw that. So legacy and recorded legacy is a very powerful thing. We speak of not caring for the pensioners. Where is your legacy of the programs that you have started for any pensioner out there? I can tell you of some. We have the Century Club that has been started for all those senior citizens who are over 100 years old, and they're just under 100 of them, and it's a beautiful thing to be able to celebrate their lives. We've also started a community program for senior citizens in their community, starting it in the village of Victoria, where I had the pleasure of going in the pouring rain, and this will allow our seniors to engage and also to be trained in things like digital literacy so that they can benefit from something introduced under this PPPC government, complete online applications for pension. So you see, it is not only going in to apply, you can do this from the comfort of your home. Mr. Speaker, the members on the other side of the House, you want to know public assistance. Public assistance is open to anyone in this country. Mr. Speaker, the number of persons receiving public assistance the numbers have more than doubled from where we started to where we are right now. Mr. Speaker, there is 133% increase in what we are doing for people with public assistance. And those persons who fall in the category of permanent disability, we have made access better. With a single application, they're on the permanent disability register and they qualify immediately for pension. So this is an unbroken support that this government is given to the people living with disabilities. What did you do? Nothing. Mr. Speaker, in addition to all of that, we have also started a supportive and assistive aids program, ensuring that people living with disabilities benefit from wheelchairs, walkers, white canes, free, all these things are free, hearing aids, because you know what, I came into government and saw people couldn't get a single wheelchair, and we're not getting a single wheelchair. In fact, the Ministry of Health is crafting prosthesis at a subsidized cost. And so when people want prosthesis, they're able to get heavily subsidized and one at a reasonable cost. Honorable Member Lawrence, it was difficult. I traveled the length and breadth of this country, and that is what I saw. You may have left something, but you left and two ministers came after you. So, Mr. Speaker, it really says a lot when people want to come here and to be, again, strangers to the truth. Mr. Speaker, the eye-care program of the Ministry of Human Services continues to deliver free tested spectacles to pensioners, vulnerable populations, and persons with disability. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that our persons living with disabilities, for the first time, I have spoken to them. I have met with those persons who make up the Council of Disabilities, and coming out of those consultations and meetings, a series of things happen. This government expended $74 million to construct the Learning Lab, and that is part of a complex in the Mahaica community, and that Learning Lab every year extends free skills training to persons living with disability in all of the regions. We have exceeded our target every year. Mr. Speaker, we continue to ensure that those persons are not only trained, but they have the opportunity for employment and entrepreneurship, because it was under this government that a revolving fund was set up, and that revolving fund is open to all persons with disability. There is no interest to be paid, and we continue to see persons benefiting. Over 45 persons benefited from that fund last year, and we will continue to work with them this year. And what are those persons trained in? They're trained in anything from garment construction to agriculture to social media marketing, using JAWS for those who are blind, and I suggest that you visit the Learning Lab before one comes here and spews misinformation. Mr. Speaker, it was under this PPPC government that over 5,000 persons benefited from wheelchairs alone. Mr. Speaker, if we look at the Mahaica complex, what is happening there? The member spoke about the residential facility for children. When that contractor could not finish the work, we terminated that contractor, as is the normal practice. We applied liquidated damages, as is the normal practice. But that complex will have the Learning Lab, which is a training facility and has been doing a lot of good work, a children's residential facility, brand new residential facilities for people living with disability. Mr. Speaker, they were in government for 5 years. Did they do any of that? No. Mr. Speaker, as we speak right now, $35,000 would have been continuing to be distributed as part of the government's one-off cash grant for persons living with disabilities. That's happening. And, Mr. Speaker, it follows on the heels of a $100,000 cash grant that would have been given to children. And from that exercise, for the first time in the country, we were able to develop a register of children living with disabilities. That register will now be utilized to see how we can help them in a very, very targeted way. Whether it's treatment they need, whether it's health care, whatever they need, we will be working with them. Mr. Speaker, This over this side doesn't have intellectual bankruptcy. Mr. Speaker, we are investing over $500 million to ensure people with disabilities have the opportunity, have equal opportunity, because we can speak of disparity, and we have set out on a very strategic direction to ensure that persons living with disabilities benefit equal to any other population in this country. We have been training persons through the same WIN program that was diminished, but go out there and tell the women whose lives have been transformed that WIN has done nothing for them. But Mr. Speaker, I want to use more or less an independent barometer of the work that Guyana has done when it comes to gender equality and improving the lives of women. When you can hear from the Ministry of Housing, 46% of those who received house lots were women. When you can hear on the Gold program, over 70% were women. When you can hear from the WIN program, every year we are training over thousands of women. To date, we have trained over 13,000 women. We have another 11,000 to train this year, and this is a hybrid model training. This is a very new program. And Mr. Speaker, when we train those women, it is not just training. They have the opportunity to be trained in business literacy, entrepreneurship, and we have seen in the earlier years, 48% of those persons would have either enjoyed employment or entrepreneurship. Mr. Speaker, when people try to diminish a program, they do not look at the real people behind those programs. The persons who work at the Ministry of Human Services and every day go out to deliver those programs. But no, you don't care. And the persons who benefit at the end of the day, and wherever I go across this country, I am met by a woman who says, here is my business card. I have started my business. And you know what? I'm going to invite all of you to the upcoming We Lift exhibition that started with 75 women-owned businesses. And in this year, we are targeting 350 women-owned businesses. Mr. Speaker, we have harnessed ICT and developed an app, a WIN app, which has been populated by over 1,000 women-owned businesses. That is what WIN has done. Mr. Speaker, I want to say very categorically, we have spared no effort to reduce the gender divide and gender disparity, from training thousands of persons through the Gender Affairs Bureau, from ensuring that the Gender Focal Point program continues, and from looking at gender-responsive budgeting, gender mainstreaming. This is all work that was being done by the ministry, but I wanted to tell you of that independent source. And I speak, Mr. Speaker, of the Global Gender Gap Index, which in 1 year saw Guyana move from a ranking of 53 to 35. Mr. Speaker, we got to be doing something right. And that's not me telling you. This is from the World Economic Forum. Mr. Speaker, I also want to recognize the work that is being done by BIT as well, and they are tackling gender stereotypes. Mr. Speaker, I do not need to come here and belittle anyone or diminish anyone. I can just speak of the work that has been done. Solid, tangible, impactful, consistent, continuous, like the PPP stands for: progress, prosperity, people. And Mr. Speaker, it is this we need in this House. Not to sit here and descend into the gutter as we do, and to belittle the work that has been done. Walk around this country, take the blinkers off, look at what is happening with construction, look at what is happening around the country, look in your own neighborhoods. Honorable Mr. Speaker, through you, the Honorable Member Bishop Edgehill posted a lovely thing, and they walk on my road that I built, and they say we didn't do anything. Mr. Speaker, if we look at what women are having as opportunities available to them, An average woman, any woman in this country, will benefit from $100,000, the one-off cash grant. She will get the $55,000 Because We Care cash grant. If her child has a disability, she will get $35,000. She may benefit from public assistance. Her child may benefit from the school feeding program. Mr. Speaker, she will also be able to access free technical vocational training, free training through WIN, BIT, and anything else that she wants to. She is benefiting from what we restored. No VAT on electricity and water and healthcare and school supplies. Mr. Speaker, if you conservatively put that all together, you're looking at around $800,000 a year put in the pockets of women by the People's Progressive Party Civic. Mr. Speaker, we do not believe in handouts only. We believe in investing in people, and all the programs I speak of speak to that investment that we have been doing in people every year, Mr. Speaker. And we are seeing young women just taking those opportunities, whether you are in Region 1 or you are in Region 10 or somewhere in the middle between 5 and 6. Mr. Speaker, I did go to Barometer and I went to launch the WIN program, and after that sewing program, they were able to make hammocks. Can you make a hammock? Well, they were able to do it after the training program through the WIN program. Barometer Region 1 was the place where WIN was launched. Mr. Speaker, let me turn my attention to gender-based violence. I think it's a tragedy when any woman or man loses their life to violence. I believe that with all my heart. But this is work that must be ongoing. And Mr. Speaker, the member spoke of 4,000 cases of child abuse reported. That is because we have a reporting system. In 2017, they had 3,000 cases. In 2018, they had more than 3,000 cases. What did you do? Nothing. In coming into this government, we have developed a comprehensive Guyana model. This was supported through the Spotlight Initiative, and here are the things we did. That's why people can report. We have a 24-hour toll-free hotline, 914. We have the Survivors Advocates Program, a survivor advocate in every region. We also have the SAFE voucher, the survival kit. We also have expanded our shelters across the region. We have developed the gender-based violence policy framework. We have developed the Guyana model to counter gender-based violence, which is recognized across this region as the best model from the Spotlight Initiative program. So much so that my counterparts from across this region, they have been asking me how we do it, and they would like to know what we are doing. And I'm very cautious when I mention statistics related to domestic violence, because nobody should lose their life. No one. No.
Honorable Minister, not to lose you, we would like to get you to continue.
Mr. Speaker, can I ask Minister Singh for the hour he has been promising everyone? Anyway, but back to gender-based violence. So, Mr. Speaker, the Family Violence Act was passed under this government. The Counter-Trafficking in Persons Act was passed under this government. Mr. Speaker, all the policies I speak of, reintegration, reunification, those are going to be done this year. And it speaks to children who are in abusive situations, and the thinking is that we don't want these children to be institutionalized forever. We want to ensure that they're with families, so our foster care program has expanded. We have also added to the landscape day, night care, early childhood facilities, first of its kind because it is complemented by early childhood development, speaking to a population of 0 to 3 years old, and that is new, that is innovative, and that will morph into where I want to see women take the opportunity, because we are going to subsidize them to set up their home-based care programs. Mr. Speaker, that is solid work. Mr. Speaker, the other thing is the collaboration between the Ministry of Human Services and the Ministry of Legal Affairs to develop a model, again, a novel model that my counterparts came to Guyana to see. And they looked at it and they marveled at what we would have done. The Hope and Justice Centers, one in Lusignan and the other in Virgin Ocean. And for the first time, a mobile service hub in Region 1. Mr. Speaker, what did they do? Zilch. Mr. Speaker, when we think of the social ills that we have and the social issues, we cannot ignore trafficking in persons. We have managed to maintain the Tier 1 status for 8 unbroken years, seeing more convictions, more in terms of restitution to be paid to victims, and that is because of the kind of work that we have been doing. We have been working with the Guyana Police Force, and the Cop Squad initiative would have seen over 50% of the Guyana Police Force trained to respond to cases of gender-based violence and child abuse. But we didn't stop there. Legal access, legal support. Government heavily subsidizes legal aid, as it does ChildLink and Blossom. And you were saying that there is no collaboration with anyone. For the first time, we have child advocacy centers in every region. I know you looked at me. In every region. And this is because we have continued to work to put all those things in place. The legal access to which I speak is called the Legal Pro Bono Initiative, and that was started a couple of years ago under this government, and it has been providing legal support to thousands of women at no cost, and that is a collaboration between the Guyana Bar Association and the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security. Mr. Speaker, let me tell you a little bit more. The manifesto promises of ACNU in 2015 work closely with local, national, and international bodies to increase women's entrepreneurial activities. You didn't do it, but we did it through WIN. Advocate for lower interest rates at financial institutions for female-headed households and first-time owners. You didn't do it, but the PPPC did it. Mr. Speaker, I can continue just like that to tell you about more of the broken promises, more of their manifesto promises that were not delivered and that were not at all even touched in their time. Promote gender-friendly banking services, especially in the area of loans to women. PPPC did it. Implement a child tax credit program for employers. Budget 2025 does it. This is our legacy. You see why I want to embrace it and why you run from yours? Mr. Speaker, if the members on that side of the House they would not choose to support this budget, and I'm hearing that. These are the kinds of things that they're saying no to. Go out there and tell women, go out there and tell the children that you claim to love that you're not going to support this budget and starve them of the resources that they will get. Increase government-funded child care centers to support women. It's now at $50,000 under the Child Care and Protection Agency, and we are giving $100,000 to all women who start their own child care centers. This is the PPPC. Amend labor laws to incorporate flexi time, which permits women to work from home and promote part-time employment. You scoff at the 10-day worker program, but most of the persons employed there, honest work, women, done by the PPPC, not you. But you promised. Immediately implement at all police stations a special victims unit. And this is where you talked about handling crimes against women. Police stations have them, Minister Ben spoke about them, and Cop Squad was done. PPPC. Encourage women to enter non-traditional areas of employment, including auto mechanics, electrical repairs, carpentry. We have done it through women are building boats, women are driving heavy-duty machinery, and under the WIN program, the UK City and Guilds will produce women who will be adept in electrical installation, masonry, carpentry, and much, much more. We are doing it. We walk our talk. What do? Nothing. Mr. Speaker, there was another manifesto promise. establish with the assistance, I think I need MP Singh, Suresh, to read this thing in his big voice. I'm going to try. Establish with the assistance from national and international agencies scholarships for disadvantaged women to pursue tertiary education, free UG in 2025. Empower and identify female police officers to support victims of violence, COP Squad. None of these things are your programs. Mr. Speaker, I can go on and on and on, and I hope I'm still up for that hour that Minister Singh is so generously giving away. But I want to say, Mr. Speaker, the 2025 budget promises things that we are already doing and will continue to do. Inclusivity, equity, and empowerment. We have an opportunity to foster a society where citizens feel that their circumstances are being looked at, their needs are being met, and their aspirations and ambitions are being encouraged and nurtured, and that they are motivated to do more and be more as we continue on a rapid trajectory of development and growth in this country. And I must say, we are not just investing in numbers, Mr. Speaker. We are investing in lives, in futures, in people, in the very fabric of our nation. I thank again my colleague, Minister Ashni Singh, and I support Budget 2025. That's our legacy. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.